If you're seeking approval and trying to avoid criticism, right, you're kind of a people pleaser and therefore you're going to likely to get worried about what other people think. You got to stop doing this because this is hurting your performance and your well-being. And you probably already inherently know that. So this video is about highlighting why you're doing that, why we do it, why it doesn't work, and what you can do instead, and what actually works and what you can do about it. So if you don't know who I am, make sure you subscribe. I'm Dr. Cassie Preston, full-time sport and performance psychology consultant, helping businesses and athletes not have to go through all the struggles I went through as a former OHL pro and university hockey player. So I learned a lot of lessons the hard way and then went to school and now do this full-time. So this video, we're going to jump right into three big lessons, and I'm going to actually share a whiteboard screen to kind of show you some examples along the way. And the first big lesson about why you don't have to be worried about getting praise and seeking praise and avoiding criticism is that it is extrinsic. So just share this whiteboard with you. And as you can see, it's, when we're focused on getting praise and getting criticism, it is a extrinsic form of motivation. So if I put praise up here, we all think praise is some great thing. And we often think criticism is the worst, right? We don't want to be criticized, okay? And the problem with that is then how are we living? We're seeking this, right? So I'll go a little arrow here. Okay, we're trying to go towards this and we're trying to run away from this. And so it's though, as the lesson number 1 point here, it's extrinsic. It's about pleasing others and not getting disapproval or getting recognition. And so we're chasing extrinsic things. And again, there's nothing wrong with wanting praise and not wanting criticism, but the obvious thing is you're going to get both, right? And as long as we're doing this, we create a dichotomy. So think of it this way. There's, we put a big line here. We're trying to get here and we're trying to avoid this, but you're going to get both. And instead of seeing them as good and bad and we got to get this and can't get that, we want to let that go and live on a whole other level, which I'm going to get to shortly, which is up here. So that's the first big problem. And think of it this way. Do you know anybody that's liked by everybody all of the time? Well, no. So then we got to let go of this false reality that we should be praised and liked and get recognition all the time, because that's an unrealistic way to live and pursuit. So that's the first big thing. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And you can even think of it this way. Maybe you've got praise before. Often parents will do this, where a parent will praise you, but like you didn't play well, or a boss praises you and you're like, I don't think I did a good job on my work. So it's not the praise that's actually meaningful. And it's like, oh, I don't want that praise. I know what happened to me when my dad was like, oh, you played so good. I was like, no, I didn't. Right. And then vice versa happens when you actually get criticism. You're like, well, this doesn't make sense. I actually thought I did well. And there's a misalignment. And maybe the person giving you the feedback doesn't know the whole story. And so that leads into the big second lesson, which I'll write over here, that praise and criticism are both just forms of feedback. Okay, so number 2, it's forms of feedback. They're neither good nor bad. They're just types of feedback. And those types of feedback can be very helpful, right? So they can, when you see it as feedback, you're going to learn that these are just things that are outside of your control, and we let go of that. Okay, so stop chasing things. Like, you don't get to decide if someone likes you. You can play great. You can do your best work, and somebody still doesn't like it. And then some days you don't do your best work and somebody does like it. So you're seeking things that are outside of your control, right? So we want to see this as outside of our control and let that go and focus on what is within our control. A second big thing is to understand that this feedback, though, can be helpful, right? And this is, one of the most obvious ones. When we're looking over here at criticism, criticism can be a great opportunity for you to learn and grow. Right? But a lot of us start to think criticism bad. We want to avoid and avoid all criticism. No, you get a chance to give constructive feedback, criticism, use it as a learning opportunity. It's just feedback, right? Keyword feedback here, instead of it's what we need to seek and what we need to avoid. Now, and then the last big point is that you actually need both, right? You need both praise and criticism. You need, some recognition and get positive reinforcement. And you need hey, you didn't do this well, you got to do better. Both forms of those feedback help you grow. If you're only getting one form, that's not helpful. So you're going to actually get both, because nobody's liked by everybody. So you're going to get criticism. And if you're not getting much praise from others, find a coach or people or boss that will, or get some for yourself. But everybody, you can find or build your own support system that you do want to make sure you get some positive reinforcement, not praise and criticism, but actual positive reinforcement versus constructive criticism. All right. So this leaves us then with the last point that I want to highlight, which is, well, what can we do about this? So we get a better understanding of why we have this, and that it's just extrinsic type of motivation, which we don't really want. We want intrinsic, which I'm about to get to, and that these are actually just forms of feedback. Well, the third lesson that I want to make very clear here is that we want to seek in and focus on our intrinsic motivations. Okay, so what the heck are those, right? So it's kind of a weird word. It comes from within, self-determined, things that are the most meaningful for you. So the easy way to look at this is anything where you're learning or you're growing. Okay, those are both intrinsic. We all intrinsically value to learn and grow. Think of it this way, where you're able to contribute to a team or serve. Okay, that is also intrinsic. And then lastly, where you get to build or create. These are also types of intrinsic forms of motivation. And then go back to this little drawing here. When we're thinking about growing and intrinsic motivation, the way to think of this, I'll make number 3 here, make it the third point. Okay, the way to think of this is that you're going to get both. This is a whole different direction. We're not going right and left, praise and criticism and avoiding. We're going all the way up here in a whole different direction, which is about learning, growing, and what's meaningful for you. Now, I got a cool favorite example that I like to share quickly and related to why intrinsic motivation, that you actually have it. Because a lot of us think we're like, oh, I'm doing this for extrinsic reasons. And extrinsic motivations, that's what we're actually taught, and our society talks about a lot. So one of my favorite examples of that is just to pretend you're a sprinter, right? Sprinting is a pretty tangible, obvious sport. And if you have a race in 1 month, the ideal situation is you train hard, you work hard, you get faster, right? You improve and you grow, and therefore you run your best race. So you set a personal best, so growth, learning, okay? And you come in first place and get praise and recognition and get the big medal and you're, the winner of the Olympics or whatever, right? But the concept is that's what you want. Everybody wants both of those. But what if you again trained hard and worked hard, did all the right things and got better and grow, but so you get this intrinsic, but then you come in second place. So you don't quite get the outcome. It's like, that's too bad. Came second. So getting some more criticism, people like, oh, could have done better. You let us down, whatever. Right. So not so great, but all right. At least you gave it your best effort versus not training hard, not getting, doing the work and eating well and the things that you can control. And therefore you don't get faster. If anything, you get slower. So you don't make the growing and the learning here. And what happens though, you race against a bunch of like 5-year-olds or 10-year-olds, then you come in first place and everybody's like, oh, wow, you're so fast against not such a great competition. Well, how does that feel? Well, the obvious point here is we don't really want that, right? And obviously, again, with the ideal is we want both. But if you had to choose between, the second and third options, right? Second place, but growth versus, first, but less growth, you choose the second place. You wouldn't choose the external thing. You would choose the internal motivation is more meaningful. And so we want to learn to understand who we are and what we value and what we truly want, right? What is your why? What are you working towards that's meaningful to you? And when you have that level of clarity, you understand that you're going to get success and failure along the way. You're going to get criticism and praise along the way, and positive and negative feedback, constructive feedback. So when you're looking at it that way, it becomes a lot easier to let go of people pleasing and worrying about what other people think and trying to get praise and criticism. And now we're playing on a whole nother level, right? And I go back to just share my screen one more time. I want to make this really clear. We want to be up here. This is where we're not even in this realm. Let go of this. We don't want to be down here, right? We don't want to be down here focusing on this. We can focus on forms of feedback. Sure, I'll give a check mark over here, right? Forms of feedback. Yeah, we like. But we don't want to be focused on this extrinsic motivation. Not saying extrinsic motivation is bad. It's going to come and go. We are human, but we definitely want to be living up here more. We want to be performing and playing and putting your best work forward, focusing on the process, because you're very clear on what your why is. You're very clear on who you want to be and what it means to you and why you're doing the things that you're doing. And not doing, and you're doing it for intrinsic reasons that are meaningful versus praise and criticism. So hopefully you guys found that helpful. Again, if you have any questions, let us know in the comments or send us a message. Make sure to follow our page, and we'll hope to see you all soon. Thanks.